guess I could do a proper introduction by singing Blue Oyster Cult, but I don't feel like embarrassing myself any more than I'm going to. So, hi everybody.
Hello.
I have an inkling that people probably know that this is a Godzilla panel, and like half the room gets up and leaves. Just kidding. Anyway, well, for those of you who would be, well, of course you know, you're at the Godzilla panel, and I'm Matt Frank, and I'm an artist for IDW on their Godzilla comic series. I did the incentive covers for Kingdom of Monsters, including the Stomp cover promotion, which, of course, our local shop, Astro Zombies here in Albuquerque, participated in. And and I did the first issue of Godzilla Legends, did all the interiors, and I did the San Diego cover for Gangsters and Goliaths. I've been doing some Transformers stuff. I've been doing all this stuff. Yeah, everybody knows that. So, yeah. So, I guess what we can do first is just kind of open it up to some questions. To be honest, I kind of forgot that I was doing a panel until 2 hours ago. So, so we're just going to be loose here. We'll just talk about Godzilla or talk about art or whatever. So if anybody has any questions, just go ahead and chime in. Like actually getting into the Godzilla comics. And well, I was lucky that I had a previous relationship with IDW working on a few little, just some stand-in art for some Transformers stuff. And they knew what a big Godzilla fan I was. This is actually one of my favorite stories, and I recounted it on the Astro Boys podcast the other night, so y'all should give that a listen. But I'll go ahead and say it here because it's one of my favorite stories. I had just gotten back from Manhattan for my freelance job, and so I had just missed the New York Comic Con where they made the announcement. I was literally walking to check the mail, and I got a call from a friend of mine who said, "Dude, when were you going to tell me?" "Tell you what? Do you not know yet?" "I don't know what." And he told me that, dude, IDW is doing a Godzilla comic. I didn't even make it to the mailbox. First off, I hung up on him. I turned around and I ran back home, and I was almost apoplectic because I was just like, because nobody told me they were doing this. But, you know, that's just how it goes. But I sent Chris Ryle, was the editor, one of the editors-in-chiefs or creative director, whatever the hell his title is now. I asked him, "Hey, you remember how much I like Godzilla, right?" And he said, "Dude, I'm literally like at the booth right now in New York. Let me call you when I get back." So I went down to the coast for the weekend, and I just fretted the whole time. I was hanging out with my parents, and they were just like, Matt, what? Get off your phone." But I'm waiting for his email. So, anyway, I came to actually find out later that they had already been planning to ask me to help out with the covers in some way, which was incredibly humbling. I mean, I'm so small time, especially I would be working on the same book as Eric Powell and Phil Hester. So that was pretty crazy. But mostly it was just already having been a fan, doing a ton of fan art, which is not the way you're supposed to do it, but, you know, whatever. Sometimes that's just the way the dice roll. So, any other questions?
So, I personally have seen all the movies, and I know that there's a very rare instance of something bad in Godzilla, but what is your least favorite out of all the movies?
Oh man, that's like asking an alcoholic what's his least favorite drink. You know, I have seen, of course I've seen all the movies, and I don't know, to me, I think that one of the worst things you can do in a monster movie is make it boring, or just do the same thing over and over again. So, I mean, there's aspects of all the films that I like, but when you get to something like Godzilla Raids Again, which was the second one that hardly anybody knows about, it's just that it was kind of obvious that they really kind of rushed it, and they didn't really think about how they could make it, they could build on the previous film and make it kind of more exciting or more engaging, other than just give a monster for Godzilla to fight. But, you know, it still has its moments, and it still has its creative touches, like burying Godzilla in an avalanche, which is such a creative way to just get rid of him. So, you know, for a couple of movies. Anyway, yeah, so, you know, but like I said, there's aspects of all the films that I like, and very few that I dislike at all. So, heck, I even like Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, and the 4 people in the room who know what I'm talking about will. Anyway, so, anybody else? What's up?
Two. First of all, did you hate the American remake of Godzilla? Because I thought that...
We're not going to talk about that today. You go ahead, go ahead.
And favorite villain?
Actually, we will go ahead and talk about the American Godzilla, so brace yourself. Just tighten those cheeks. You know, really, I went back and I revisited it fairly recently, and, you know, it's not a terrible film. It's kind of fun. It's a little dopey. I kind of started clawing my ears out when Maria Patillo starts talking, because she thinks she can act, and she really can't. But, you know, the effects are pretty good. It's just that they might as well have just called it Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. I mean, the whole conceit, the whole reason why that film didn't work is because, now look, I'm of the mindset you don't have to be a fan of something in order to make an adaptation or an interpretation of it. Like, you look at Beast Wars, the Transformers TV series, one of my favorite cartoons of all time. The writers for that series were not Transformers fans, but they got the reason why people like Transformers so much, and that's that it's because they're not just robots, they're characters. So with Godzilla, it's not just a giant monster movie. If that was the only reason Godzilla remained popular throughout the years, then we'd be watching Gorgo 13 or something, or, you know, so there's something about the Godzilla movies that you gotta get. You don't have to be a fan, you just have to understand why people like it, and that's what Devlin and Emmerich didn't understand. So, we'll move on. And, but favorite villain, that's an interesting question because to me, it's hard to categorize the monsters as villains because they're kind of above the petty concepts of morality. You know, good and evil don't really apply to giant monsters because they're giant monsters. Actually, one of my favorite villains was Kenji Sahara in Mothra vs. Godzilla. He was the guy, he was always wearing the aviators. He was a slimy businessman. And Kenji Sahara, he's an amazing actor. He's been in more giant monster movies than any other actor in the world. I actually got to meet him briefly in Chicago a few years ago. The guy is like, he is so serious about everything. Really nice, but he's always wearing a suit, like a pressed suit. And he was doing a panel at a convention in Chicago, and he received a standing ovation, and he almost started crying because, which is a big deal for a Japanese, especially a Japanese actor. And he's so passionate about this, and that was his only role, as I recall, of him actually being a villain, and he was so good at it. He's so oily and horrible in this film. So he was one of my favorite actual villains. So, any other questions?
Wait. What do you think about that just came out recently?
The new ongoing?
Yes.
The one with art by Simon Gain, written by Dwayne Szynski? We'll just say yes. Okay. Well, I actually am really excited for where this is going to go. I'm working on covers for that, starting with issue 2, which is coming out this month. And you know, I read the first issue, I loved it. I actually just read the second issue, an advance copy that I was sent, and it's really going in some really cool directions. And it's a really refreshing take on the concept. You know, it's these guys who are going to fight monsters, but they're going to fight smart as opposed to fighting with brute force. So issue 2's got some rather interesting shenanigans with the main characters all huddled inside of an armored truck that Anguirus is just batting around the city like a cat toy. It's a really interesting conceit. So yeah, and there were a couple questions over somewhere.
Yeah. I was wondering what your favorite Godzilla movie of all time is.
Favorite movie?
Yeah.
Well, you're at my caliber of fanness and nerdness. It's hard to just have one single favorite.
It is tough, yeah.
No, we're not going to do that. I'm not going to subject you poor people to that. But I will say this. The movie that I usually try to introduce people to Godzilla, like if it's something that, you know, I meet so many of my friends who they don't they don't really know that they just kept making Godzilla movies. They didn't really stop in the 70s. They just kind of kept going. And the one I usually try to introduce them to is GMK, the 2001 Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack. I can say the title in Japanese, I'm not going to. Oh, the heck with it. Gojira, Mosura, Kingu Ghidorah, Daikaiju, Soko Geki, which I'm going to say when I get to Japan this November. And I'm going to freak people out. So, anyway. That's one of my favorites just because the effects are really tight. The suits are the best suits in the series. I mean, they've got all these great animatronics and the writing's really good. It's not Shusuke Kaneko's best film. That would be the entire Gamera trilogy. But it's a really solid film, and it's a great way to introduce people. Like, here's Godzilla, but what I like is at the start of the movie, like the first half of the movie, the whole of Japan is like, Godzilla, oh, he's like a joke now. Like, nobody's seen him in like 50 years. It's like something that people kind of laugh about, like it was not that big of a deal. And then Godzilla actually shows up, and it's the fan. So that's what I like about that film. But as far as the classic films go, Mothra vs. Godzilla vs. the Thing, that's just a crackerjack film. It's so whimsical and yet so, like I said, so tight and so well produced. So plus I said Keiichi Sahara. So he had his hands up actually, and he got the first sketch of the con too. He got yeah, that's right. He got I got Megalon with Jet Jaguar's head spiked. It was, poor JJ. No one loves you.
Most Godzilla messages have a message other than just giant monsters destroying the city. I like the one where the little kid has the dream.
Yeah.
It's
Godzilla's Revenge, yeah.
Which one?
Oh, come on.
That has like a real message, like a.
It's got a really strong moral center to it.
Like a pollution law.
Yeah. First off, can everybody hear me okay with the speakers and everything? All right. Just want to make sure there's not a whole lot of feedback. That's actually a really great question. Godzilla's Revenge is pretty high on my list just because it's so underrated. People come down on it because it uses stock footage so much. I mean, yeah, they had to use stock footage because they blew all their money on Destroy All Monsters. So, well, you know, that was what was so great about Honda, Ishiro Honda, the director of most of the films from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. He had a very, how do I describe it? He was a staunch pacifist because he had been drafted twice. And he hated the war, hated it, and he was a commanding officer, so he had all this, he was constantly under stress, he was constantly worried about his troops, he didn't believe in the cause and why they were even there, and that's why so many of his films will have this underlying layer of kind of universal brotherhood. In Destroy All Monsters, Honda's ideal of the future of the mysterious far-off year of 1999, where we have rockets to the moon daily. His whole idea of the seat of power in the world was the UN, which as we know is not the case. But it's still a nice ideal. But as far as like a really strong central message, you know, like I said, the original film was great for that. Godzilla's Revenge is great for that. Like I said, Mothra vs. Godzilla, the whole point of the film was that we got to set aside our differences because there's bad stuff out there, and there's other than our petty squabbles over things like. Actually, the thing about Godzilla vs. Mothra vs. Godzilla, whatever. It's got like 3 or 4 titles that I really like is the idea that all of mankind is responsible for the bomb and for the horrors of war. Because when the main characters go to Mothra's island to plead and try to get Mothra to help them, the natives didn't make any distinction because the natives, they were all stricken with cancer basically because of all the nuclear tests in the Pacific, and that was the point of the film. So and the Japanese, of course, they weren't the ones testing the bombs. They weren't the ones setting off the bombs and everything, but it didn't matter to the natives. They said, you are part of the modern world, you're responsible for this. And the characters knew that. They said, that's right, we are responsible for this, and we're sorry, but to help you, we need your help first. And, you know, it's just a very earnest, very honest film. Then, of course, Smog Monster, as long as you've got, you know, let's really traumatize our kids with Godzilla vs. Smog Monster. Let's really mess them up. Let's have these people get dissolved right on camera, and, oh, that poor cat. So anyway, there you go. We had another one. Oh, I found Waldo! Oh, that was terrible, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Up-and-coming Godzilla movie, how's the special effects on it, since Toho destroyed their famous studio for making Godzilla movies?
You mean the new one that Legendary and Warner Brothers are making, or?
Yeah.
Okay, well.
Was that through Toho?
No, Toho's not directly involved in that film.
Right.
They're just distributing in Japan, and if it's anything like the IDW comics, they are probably overseeing a lot of the approvals. I mean, actually, part of the reason why the 1998 film, yes, we're talking about that again. The 1998 film, what happened with that, part of the reason was Toho didn't actually have much in the way of approvals over that. They were so desperate to get a new American film made that TriStar said, look, we'll buy the rights off of you lock, stock, and barrel, but basically we get to do whatever we want. So, there you go. I mean, how do you say no to that? It's a couple $1 million. So, anyway, but with the new film, no one's really sure because there's literally no information out there other than the fact that they keep firing writers. And take from that what you will. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, rumor is that they want to do a mix of rubber suit and CGI, like a rubber suit and CGI overlays, kind of like what they did with Where the Wild Things Are. So it'd be interesting if they could do that. But I could see the producers fighting them on that because, like, no, we gotta do CGI because that's what all the cool kids are doing. So that's literally the mentality of CGI, of using CGI. It's like with the Wolfman remake. Rick Baker made a entirely practical effect transformation sequence that's apparently like the best one ever put to film for like a werewolf transformation, and the studio made him cut it and replace it with CGI because they wanted to use sleek, sexy CGI so they could get whatever, you know. Anyway, high school never ends. What's up?
What did you think of Final Wars?
Let's move on. No, I'm just kidding. Final Wars is actually, I think it's the pinnacle of dumb fun. Like, it's just, but the one problem I do have with it is Ryuhei Kitamura, the director, approached it the same way that Michael Bay approached the Transformers movies, in that he doesn't give a crap about the Transformers. He just wants to film cars and then maybe, oh, I guess I better slip the Transformers in at some point. Whereas with Final Wars, Kitamura is so self-indulgent with all this kung fu and crazy whatever, and then it's like the monsters are almost an afterthought. You could actually cut the monsters out of Final Wars and it'd be the same film. So, which is really sad when you think about it. It's Godzilla Final Wars, so whatever. Actually, I heard that Kaneko was not upset, but he kind of was like, kind of wish they had asked me to do that. Oh well. So, like I said, the 4 people who know what I'm talking about. Any other questions? Wow. Wait, oh, you have an next one. Yeah.
Least favorite monster out of all of the whole series?
You're killing me with this. You're killing me, Smalls. Oh, come on. It's all right. I don't have a least favorite. I think they all have cool little aspects to them that make them unique. I mean, I guess if you had to start digging really deep, you get to stuff like the extremely nondescript giant sea serpent in King Kong Escapes. Kong just throws a rock at it. The giant condor, I guess, that Godzilla fought. in Sea Monster. I kind of like that fight though. It's real frenetic, and he just roasts the thing. It's a really cool little fight. So there you go. I mean, I even like Maguma, the giant walrus. That thing is amazing. It serves no purpose. It just shows up, and then they bomb it, and then it dies, and then they try to cut it out of the American version, and it doesn't work because the entire scene plays out with this thing destroying this set. You just don't see a giant walrus. They keep pretending like it's an earthquake. So it's an earthquake that's literally pushing up out of the ground. And then, oh wait, there's a giant dead walrus body over there. Oh, they cut away. Okay. So anyway, that was Gorath, was the film. And it's amazing. Okay, somebody else over here. Yeah.
Did you get all teary or emotional in Godzilla vs. the Destroyer?
Why you gotta bring that up? It's a very dark part of my past that yeah, we all did. Shoot, when I was a kid and I saw Godzilla 1985, and he falls into the volcano, they're yanking on your heartstrings with that music, and you're just like, come on, he just wanted to love. So, I see, I'm getting all teary-eyed now. Why are you gonna bring that up? No, but that was pretty traumatizing when you were a kid. And then I saw Godzilla vs. Biollante, and everything was all right. So, because he comes up out of the volcano, and he's just like, what? What? You're lava and crap? That don't hurt me. What do you got? Nothing, man. You got nothing. So anyway. Yeah. You already asked it. Oh, well. I'll get back to you in a minute. Let's go to somebody who hasn't asked one yet. Oh, right there.
Would you, if given the chance, take a sexy vacation to the
Like where this is going?
with the cosmos?
Well, they're this big. I will tell you how big of a nerd I am. I have one of their albums from the 1960s.
That's awesome.
I got it as a Christmas present, and it's very slow and it's very beautiful. It's like Christmas music or something. It's really beautiful. They retired almost like at the height of their career. The actual the original the 1960s Cosmos, the ones that were actually twins. Although I think the 90s ones were twins too. So my answer would be yes. Let's see, who hasn't asked a question in a while?
Alright, so this has been a long-standing debate between me and my dad since I saw Godzilla vs. Destroyer.
This is going to be good.
In 2002, and he thinks that King Ghidorah could beat Destroyer. I think Destroyer could beat King Ghidorah. I need somebody to agree with me.
Gosh, that really kind of depends on what version you're talking about. See, now we're getting into semantics here. I mean, I don't know. See, when you get down to who would want to fight with who, like I did the Godzilla vs. the Avengers print for the convention, which is at my table. You should come by and pick it up. I did that, and it sparked this huge debate online between people about who would win between Godzilla and the Avengers. And some people said the Avengers, some people say Godzilla. And it's like, whoever wins, it depends on what's more dramatically sound. Because it's whoever's writing, and because you can't just have them fighting in a vacuum. That's uninteresting. That's boring. It's more exciting when they're fighting in the middle of the city, and the Avengers have to be on crowd control, and they have to make sure people aren't being murdered, and the ending for that comic, the actual comic of Godzilla vs. the Avengers, which yes, that did happen, it dramatically it made sense. It was a stalemate. So if it was like a no holds barred Godzilla, Destroyer versus King Ghidorah, like I said, it depends on the version. I don't know, because King Ghidorah is almost impervious. I mean, the '91 version of Ghidorah got his head blown off, but flip a coin. Yeah, got one? Seriously. Yeah, flip it. We'll do heads is Ghidorah. Fine. That's cool. Okay, Ghidorah has tails. Come on. It's heads. Oh, I guess it's Destroyer. So we'll just go with that. Just tell your dad Destroyer. Okay. Anybody else? Let's see. What's up? We'll get back to you.
For the future of Toho, have you heard anything of that they're going to do anything, or are they kind of just...
I think that there's a very strong chance they'll do something for the 60th anniversary, which is coming up in 2014. I don't think they'll do a film. I think that's when the Legendary film's going to come out, or that's when they're gunning for anyway. But are we on time? Are we good? Is it only half an hour or is it an hour? Okay, we got time to kill then. Yeah, I think that Toho will maybe do some promotional stuff. It is kind of cool that they've been doing these pachinko games with little screens. I don't know if anybody's seen those. Everybody know what pachinko games are?
Mm-hmm.
They're the little, for those that don't know, they're kind of like pinball machines. You get them in, you find them in Japanese gambling establishments. And they've been making these really expensive, really elaborate pachinko games for Godzilla. And they actually got the special effects director from the 90s films, Koichi Kawakita, to actually direct some new live-action sequences of Godzilla fighting Anguirus and King Ghidorah and Gigan, and it's pretty exciting, and it's kind of neat to see that they're still, doing it with full sets and full pyrotechnics and everything. Beyond that, though, I mean, there's no telling. I mean, everybody's been so quiet about the Legendary film, there's almost no telling what anybody's going to do. So, wish I knew. I'd be the first one to go on the internet and tell everybody. Anybody else? You had a question, didn't you?
You think we'll ever see Godzilla against Gamera?
Ha ha! No.
Why not?
I would like for that to happen. I really would. But really, it's a question of business politics, because Daiei for the longest time was a rival against Toho Studios. What?
They haven't been doing any monster movies, so Toho
Well,
got
part of the problem is that the sad fact is that these monster movies aren't popular in Japan right now. I mean, the last Gamera movie was Gamera the Brave, which I love that movie. It's such a good film. It's like the Stand By Me of monster movies, and I'm not exaggerating. But it flopped. It was a huge flop, and it just so. Where was I going with this? So, for example, Kadokawa, who actually bought the rights to Gamera after Daiei folded, or rather, they bought out Daiei. They actually approached Toho with, "We want to do Godzilla versus Gamera." And part of the problem, though, is that Toho doesn't really want Godzilla to be challenged in his own field, so to speak. That's one of the reasons why, for example, IDW really wanted to get a Godzilla versus Cthulhu going for the Infestation comics series, and Toho didn't want to do it presumably because they didn't want Godzilla in any way to be overshadowed. They want Godzilla to be the star of whatever is going on. So. And then part of the concern is also that you'd have the companies fighting back and forth about, well, no Godzilla should win, no Gamera should win, no Godzilla should win. Even though they could just do a stalemate, it's just a lot of bureaucratic, business political red tape. I'd like to see it happen, probably not going to. So sorry to dash everybody's hopes and dreams there with a sledgehammer. Anyway, any other questions? Yes, again. Yeah.
The one right after first Ghidorah.
Yeah.
I like that one because they explain the Planet X and and stuff. I know that in Final World they kind of brought back the aliens and stuff like you said, it was like you said. Which one was your favorite with the alien? I know your favorite.
Do you mean which film with alien invaders in it? Yeah, with the space monkeys. Well, that's you know what? I've always had a soft spot for this Planet X aliens. They're really funny. They're really awesome, and I have an unhealthy crush on Miss Namikawa from Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. And who wouldn't? I mean, come on. But beyond that, though. I actually really also kind of like the giant cockroaches from Godzilla vs. Gigan. Where did it all go wrong? Maybe when you built a giant Godzilla tower in the middle of your little whatever it was, and then you're going to shoot lasers out of it. Yeah, that's not obvious. Like, those guys they're a friend of mine described them as a little invasion that could. They had no flying saucers. I love it. I was over at we had a big movie night and we were watching Godzilla vs. Gigan. And they said that they were controlling Gigan and King Ghidorah with these action tapes. These little analog tapes that would run, they each had a program on them that would send out these signals to control the monsters. So I started thinking, like, so if you played them in reverse, would the monsters rebuild the city and then fly back in outer space? Like, that would have been perfect. That's how you end the movie, right there. Anyway, so there you go. Actually, I'm trying to think if there's any other more obscure aliens. I would have loved to have seen more about the aliens from Godzilla 2000, these ancient aliens that... I actually have the manga, the manga adaptation of Godzilla 2000. I can't read it, but it kind of presents them as being like this hive mind, and they're trying to find a body or something in order to take over Earth or something like that. It's horrible. It's like when they actually start sucking out Godzilla's DNA because he has those regenerative powers. There is a sphere that comes out of the UFO, and they're like sucking out his DNA, and they're actually like the sphere becomes like this globulous mass, and then all these humanoid faces and bodies start pushing out of it, and it's terrifying. And it wasn't in the movie, but it was a really cool idea. And then, of course, because it's Godzilla's DNA, it starts messing with them, and that's what turns them into Orga, the big monster. So it's a really cool. I would have loved if that had been in the movie, but it is kind of unfortunate that sometimes the comic adaptations get written before the movies do, and they have like a vague plot to go off of, so they wind up actually being better than the movies. So, yeah, anyway. Anybody else? Come on. Yeah.
That's been a very good place to find Godzilla DVDs online or any place.
I mean, Amazon's a great place to go. eBay's got probably just Amazon, eBay. Sometimes you can find box sets at local stores and stuff. I actually managed to snag from a guy on Facebook. He was selling his Blu-rays, the Japanese Blu-rays that are not released in the States, but because Blu-rays are non-region, or Japanese Blu-rays are the same region as American Blu-rays, I can play them on my PS3. So I actually picked up the Blu-ray for Godzilla vs. Biollante and GMK, and they have, I mean, the transfers are okay, like they're mostly just DVD upgrades, but they have like 4 or 5 hours of special features of them like testing out the suits and building the suits and talking with the actors, and I mean, it's all in Japanese, no English subtitles, but really cool to actually see the process and everything. But I don't know where you can get those other than like just find somebody who's looking to sell them. I'm trying to think of some dealers that I know who carry stuff like that. Maybe try Clawmark Toys. They used to be based here in New Mexico, actually, but now they're actually in Japan. So Google them; they might have some good stuff. Anybody else?
What's your opinion of the whole?
You've asked too many questions. Be quiet. We'll get back to you, buddy. We'll come back to you in a minute. Actually, what's up?
I know there was a lot of fan complaints about the Blu-ray release of the original Godzilla film having artwork based on the newer Godzilla costume. Yeah. Do you think that it's really that big of a deal?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, trust me. My Facebook wall was a battleground because I actually got an advance copy because I sent Criterion an email saying like, hey, I kind of BS my way into getting an advance copy by pretending I was a big shot. So they were really nice enough to send me an advance copy, and I got to watch it and everything. I took some pictures of it, posted online, and this war erupted because people were arguing over the cover art. It's like, it's not that big of a deal. Really, I actually really like the front cover art, but the interior cover art, it's like, whatever. It's really not that big of a deal. It would have been nice had they been paying a little more closer attention and like, well, this is the 54 version. We can't use this version, but ultimately, whatever. I mean, it's really not that big of a deal. Over there.
Well, okay, we're having a bit of a culture clash right here.
Yay.
These are modern children that are interested
Modern children.
in older comics, but are also trying to balance the modern things that are pushing their faces and
of course.
The question is,
Yeah.
even though it's not a part of the Godzilla universe, what do you think would occur if the Men in Black, because they destroy evil aliens but work with good aliens, and Godzilla is technically kind of like an alien monster, what would happen if they were to ever collide?
Well, since the Men in Black do deal with aliens specifically, I don't know how much they would deal with Godzilla because he's not really an alien, but he would be considered a threat, I'm sure. I'm sure they in that universe, in that Men in Black universe, they have procedures set in motion to, you know, kind of corral or prevent giant monsters from destroying stuff. So if Godzilla was just plopped into that universe, they probably have all these procedures like, okay, let's get, you know, plan A7B 619.
Right. And that's what I was trying to say, is that this is the Godzilla universe, and what happens there, and maybe they wouldn't collide, but if they were to, what would happen?
Well, I mean, it would be bad. I mean, it'd be really bad. They'd have to take out a lot of hardware. But what I like about the Men in Black, at least the first film, I haven't seen the third film yet, but what I liked about the first film was that, well, they handled everything very smart, and they found kind of roundabout ways to solve problems instead of just going at it guns blazing, except for the finale, because that's what's more exciting. But they'd probably be smart about it. They'd probably say like, well, Godzilla feeds on radiation. We just need to borrow somebody's reactor or get a whole bunch of plutonium and just lure him out of the city. I mean, you know, that's one of the things that is interesting about some of the films is that it's usually the people who fight Godzilla smart as opposed to just throwing bombs and missiles at him because that doesn't work. So they have to fight him smart. You know, it's like in 1985 when they had the specialized bird signal that affected it was attracting a particular part of Godzilla's brain that he was felt compelled to follow it. It's amazing they never used that again. You know, it's like a perfect system. They used it once, but there you go. I guess the anti-nuclear energy bacteria was maybe sexier and more new. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And back over there first, because I yelled at you. I'm sorry.
I remember talking to you after you told me about one of your favorite Godzilla was. You told me 2000 and the reason being because it's slap. Do you consider Godzilla a good guy, or like sometimes he's just a loose cannon?
Yeah.
He has this time where he's trying to protect everyone from everyone's in, but he's kind of mad at everyone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's kind of like the Hulk, you know? He just wants to be left alone, more or less, but he's also got to feed, things like that. I mean, the thing about Godzilla is it just depends on the film. It depends on who's writing it and what direction they want to go in. I kind of like it when he's the anti-hero. He's kind of called to action. He's kind of the reluctant anti-hero, and he's got to, like, that's one of the reasons why I like Godzilla versus Space Godzilla so much, because the characters are so focused on fighting Godzilla the whole time. It's like, there's a much worse threat in Space Godzilla. So at the end of the film, they team up with Godzilla to actually take him down. I actually really like that conceit. Godzilla still has no love for humanity, but, you know, it's a bigger threat. And that's why Ghidorah the three-headed monster is also so much fun. Especially the whole monster talk thing. That was great. I don't know, for those of you who haven't seen Ghidorah the three-headed monster, Mothra tries to convince Rodan and Godzilla to team up to fight Ghidorah. And the little Mothra fairies are translating the whole time. So, you know, it's Godzilla and Rodan are being jerk-offs, and, you know, they don't want to help. So Mothra decides to just, screw you guys, I'm going to go fight Ghidorah myself. And literally Rodan and Godzilla are just watching her, like, it's a little caterpillar Mothra, so she's like, and they're just like, And so Mothra goes down to try to fight Ghidorah, and Ghidorah is just mopping the floor with her. Like, he's just, it's heartbreaking. And then Godzilla shows up, and he charges down the mountain and just body slams Ghidorah, and then Rodan comes in, and you know, it's really great. It's great fun. So anyway, so that would, hopefully that answers your question.
A common thing in pretty much a lot of Godzilla movies is the idea of fighting super weapons with more super weapons. First you had the Ocean Destroyer, then you had all the super X's that came out as nuclear energy bacteria freezing in.
The black hole cannon, yeah, because that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Fire a miniaturized black hole at the surface of the Earth.
Do you think that's a common thing that should be kept up about, maybe that's not such a good idea to fight, super weapons with more super weapons? Because it never seems to work except for the original Godzilla, the one time.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing is that, like I said, it's a great dramatic angle to pull from. The idea that you've got, all of our chips are in all of our eggs are in this one basket. All the chips are on the table. It's fun to kind of see what they can come up with next, because as ludicrous an idea as it is, the black hole cannon is pretty cool.
That's a good idea.
There's so many ways that could go wrong, though. Incalculable. As we saw, it opened up a dimensional rift and giant demon dragonflies came out of it. Yeah. Thanks, guys. We're science. We're all about coulda, not shoulda. Patton Oswalt. I don't know. I kind of like to see what they can come up with. The crazy stuff. The major tanks are always fun to see, and the Atragon and the Gotengo, these big flying war submarines with drills on the front of them, because that's practical. But that's just it. If you're sitting there asking about the impracticality of a monster movie, you probably shouldn't be watching a monster movie. You can go watch Pride and Prejudice or something. It's a conversation I've actually had before. But I don't know. I think it's fun. I think it's fun whenever they come up with something. So.
Do you think it's an important concept that should be keep being retold, basically, about we should kind of mind what kind of weapons we're making? Like the first Godzilla starts out, kills himself so they don't get the oxygen destroyer.
Yeah, I always like that story element. Well, I just think that it's all part of this universe and kind of creating this universe and having fun with it. It's just having fun with the concept. You've already got giant monsters. You might as well go full tilt and come up with some cool stuff to fight them. And giant robots too. I kind of want to see Mechagodzilla go back to being an evil alien robot, though.
Yeah, that was cool. I like that.
Funny side note. This is just thinking about Mechagodzilla. Last year I had a signing at Heroes of Fantasies in San Antonio, and this kid came in with his mom. The kid was completely nonverbal autistic. He's a huge Godzilla fan, and he saw this print that I had of Mechagodzilla, the original Mechagodzilla, and he starts doing this. And that was his pantomime for Mechagodzilla. How he twirls his hands before he fires his missiles. That or he was just like, but no, it was really cool, and it was just like, and it was really great that he was able to enjoy this on the same level as everybody else was. So I don't know, it just made me think about that, and I just really like that story. So, what's up?
This time it's totally for me.
Okay.
I'm wondering what it is about Godzilla, out of everything that's available. There's tons of stuff.
Yeah.
How was it that you chose Godzilla to be your passion?
It's so funny because I've actually fielded that question a couple of times. Okay, we have 15 minutes. We're good. That's enough for this one question. This is something I've been thinking about. And if I could digress just for a second. When I was working on the cover project, the Stomp covers for IDW, I was really locked down, but I managed to take an evening off and have a party with some friends who came over. And I was in the other room doing something else, and my friends were looking for shot glasses because we wanted to start taking shots. And I was like, they were asking me, Matt, where are your shot glasses? Like, check under the cabinet where the wine is. And they popped it open, and then I heard a friend of mine say, Matt, you are such a dork. And I'm like, what? And I was like, oh, right. Because my shot glasses all have Godzilla monsters on them. They're all Godzilla shot glasses. So then I thought about that and I'm like, oh yeah, you who can name not only every Harry Potter character, but all of their extended family, all the love interests they've ever had, all the houses they've ever been in. And it's like, it's all the same thing. Godzilla, Harry Potter, Star Wars, Star Trek. It's the ideas that we all have the same plumbing, we just put different stuff in it. You lock on to something like that when you're young, and it just kind of grows from there. I mean, Sorry? Oh gosh. I was really into dinosaurs when I was really little. And I got a birthday card that had a big garish green Godzilla on it stomping through the city, and I was like, what is this, and why has this not already been a part of my life since before conception? So my parents were like, oh, that's Godzilla, and that was their first mistake. And then I started renting the movies and stuff, and it's kind of one of those things where Godzilla is definitely one of those things where it's easier to get into if you were into it when you were a kid, and you kind of rediscover it when you get older, and you start thinking because there's a real richness to it, you know, because there's a whole legacy to the films. There's a great amount of artistry that goes into them. The people making the films are so passionate and so dedicated to what they were doing and what they're still doing or still trying to do. There's a huge tradition of live-action special effects, tokusatsu in Japan, and it just kind of snowballs from there. I mean, it's like the same way that somebody would get into Star Wars. You know, they're introduced to it when they're young, and there's a real richness to it. You just kind of dive into it. Mm-hmm. There's all these toys you can get. Oh God, the toys! But I actually went to a friend's house here in town for the first time. Here in Albuquerque, their entire living room is wall-to-wall Godzilla toys. Way more than I have, which is kind of distressing. No, but it's really it was really cool. So yeah. I mean, sorry? Yeah, basically, it's the greatest dinosaur ever. Although it's funny, I knew these guys who ran a paleontological gift shop in San Antonio. And I remember they would get people asking them, because it was right around when the American film was coming out, so there was all this new Godzilla hype, and people were asking, like, do you have any Godzilla stuff? And they're like, no, because Godzilla's not a dinosaur. And they're like, well, sure he is. Like, no, he's not a real dinosaur. We sell fossils here. Although there is a dinosaur called Gojirasaurus.
Here in New Mexico.
And that's right, here in New Mexico. It was like this big.
That was big for that time, I guess.
It was like early Jurassic, dude. It was like sauropods and stuff. Anyway, we're not getting into paleontology. So anyway, any other questions? We got about 10 minutes or so. I don't think you've asked one yet. We'll get back to you in a minute.
Where did you get the shot glasses?
My grandmother bought them for me. I don't know where she found them, but I think they were, 5 minutes because you got to set up. Okay, just Google them. Google Godzilla shot glasses and you'll find them. Let's get just a few more quick questions. We'll go to you real quick.
Do you watch any other tokusatsu shows aside from Godzilla?
I mean, I've dabbled in Sentai, which what we know over here is Power Rangers, which is I've never.
Power Ranger.
Oh, you're killing me. Green Ranger, dude. Green Ranger, and then White after season 2. I haven't really been able to get into Kamen Rider, but what I'm really into is Ultraman. Ultraman's where it's at. Exactly. Let's do real quick. You got a question? The guy right here in front of you, and then we'll get to you.
Quick question. Godzilla or
What I actually kind of like is that the Cloverfield monster is technically like a baby, as they described it in the making of. So if Godzilla and Cloverfield, and Clover, as they called him, showed up, like if they both showed up in the same city, the Cloverfield monster would probably run away, because it's like, if you actually watch the film, he's running from the military most of the time, because he's like, it's like jabbing a baby with a stick, you know, a little baby deer or something. Oh, it's a really sad image. Okay, well, let's get to you back there.
you said you like Ultraman. What's your opinion on your background from Godzilla?
He mother never really loved him. He liked to smash that kid head on a rock. That's a horrible song. I think he's great. I think he's just so weird with that creepy Joker grin. And hey kids, let's go fight some monsters. Oh, sorry? Yes, he is. It's a neat concept. It was kind of funny that he was actually created to be his own standalone character, but they threw Godzilla in at the last minute so they could get a little more marquee value. So, you know. And you have a question.
All right. So, out of any Godzilla monsters that haven't had very many appearances, King Caesar, Gorosaurus, who would you like to see in another
That's actually a really good question. I'd like to see something with a little more background on King Caesar. I actually tried pitching a one-shot about King Caesar dying. Like some of the classics, like, well, Gorosaurus is almost an accident. Like he was just supposed to be this T-Rex thing that Kong was gonna fight in King Kong Escapes, and then when they were making Destroy All Monsters, they went into the shed where they were keeping all the suits, and they basically, Honda and the higher up said, okay, get any suits that aren't completely falling apart so we can fill this movie with monsters. They were like, hey, we got this dinosaur, this nondescript dinosaur from King Kong Escapes, can we use that? Sure. So they just threw him in. So this is kind of funny, it's just this big T-Rex thing. So anyway. I think we got enough time for, like, how much time we got? Let's do one more question. All right, buddy. I guess, God.
Where do you think your art of Godzilla and the comics that you've been working on Godzilla is going?
Well, what I'm encouraging everyone to do right now is to buy the new ongoing, because it's really, not just because it's really good, because we need those sales go up. And there's a new miniseries coming out in August by James Takoe, who does Orkstain and a couple of other really, he does this really elaborate art style. He's doing a comic called Godzilla Half-Century War. We need people to buy that too. Not only is it going to be cool, but if we keep those numbers up, I might get my own miniseries. So we'll see what happens. So anyway, well, I guess we should go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks everybody for coming out, and yeah, my tables over in the Artist Alley are right next to Yaya Han and Cherry Pop Tart. So really.